guys, welcome to another World War Marvel, and today is going to be our first World War Marvel tactical video. What that is I'm basically going to be going over different scenarios, abilities, combos that you can find within the Marvel Universe miniature game, and I'm gonna give my opinion on them. So I had a special request to start off with how to use grab and throw. So grab and throw is a two-part action. You have your grab action, so you can grab either a scenery piece or a model, whether it be enemy or friendly. And the second part is to throw. And so the throw part you can either use to target another scenery piece or a friendly or enemy model. So what's going to happen is I'm going to break down those on the board. I have a couple of models set up, and I'll just show you how you sort of can go about using that. So why would you use a grab and throw with a scenery piece? Well, when I look at that, I think, okay, I'm going to grab a scenery piece and I'm going to throw it at an enemy model. You got the damage, sure. You know, there's some really great damage output when you're using a big heavy thrower like Colossus. He can throw size 4 items. He deals 4 damage, you know, with those size 4 items. But the key thing is, in my opinion, to assist with other people on his team. So once you get hit by that and damaged by a scenery piece, you're knocked down. And so that then will lead up to other people being able to hit you with other attacks easier. And then on top of that, scenario play. So when you're knocked down, say, and you're playing Relic, as soon as you're damaged and you are knocked down, you automatically will drop that Relic, and so that can cause you or gain you a victory point in that scenario. So that's like some of the reasons why I would use a throw of a scenery piece at a target. Now, would I throw the scenery piece at the individual, or would I throw it at a scenery piece behind my target? And that's really gets me thinking. I'm like, okay, why, if say I'm Sabretooth and I'm throwing something at Colossus. Colossus has a physical defense of 20. So if he improves his defense, and now it goes up to 22, that's huge. Where he has a lower agility. So this is where my train of thought goes, okay, so why would I target Colossus and not throw the object that I'm throwing at a scenery piece behind Colossus? So that way it forces him to make an agility test to take damage or not. So if he fails that agility test, which his agility is only 7, he would be knocked down and take damage. And so that's where that sort of plays into effect. So I'd be going, okay, so if I'm facing someone that has a high physical defense, I'm going to target a scenery piece behind them where the width or the area of the terrain piece that I'm throwing will still hit him on the way through. But anyhow, I digress. Let's go back and let's just look at what the actual rules are for grabbing and throwing. So we all know that there are 5 different stages for when you declare or when you're attacking. So first stage is you declare which attack you're using and which character will be using it. So obviously during the activation you already know who will be using it. So at that point in time you just got to declare what attack you're using. Second point, you choose the target. So it has to be a valid target to be able to use it. We all know that. And then after that you pay for the power. And step 3, you pay for the power, and then this will activate your target using any reactions or improving their defense, stuff like that, at that point in time. So then you resolve the hit, and then step 5 is where if you resolve grab, what happens is if you're grabbing now a enemy model instead of a scenery piece, you declare the attack, grab with your model, obviously. You then choose the target, so whoever is in base contact, and then you go and you pay for the cost. He then can improve his defense or use a reaction as he deems necessary. After that, you would then roll to hit, which then hopefully if you do hit goes to step 5. So step 5, if you do hit with a grab, you choose the effects are now that you get to do the throw. This is where the second part of the action comes in. So then you get to do the throw. So now you get to choose a secondary target, whether it be a scenery piece or another model. From there you have to make another hit, which can be separate. You can overload that separate throw attack if you wanted to, compared to just the grab, and then the damage will be taken care of from there, and you'll just basically go through the attack process again. So that is the steps of how you declare an attack against a target. So we looked at the steps of the attack, so let's actually now look at what the actual wording of grab and throw has in the rulebook, or what the rulebook has for the wording of the grab and throw attack in there. So grabbing and throw. Any character, if they meet the criteria below, can grab and throw scenery, items, or other characters as part of their activation. This is a special action open to all characters and counts as astonishing special power, which is, you can use it once a round, and costs 3 power. So it used to cost 2 when the game first came out, but then they realized that's just too little for what it actually does, and so they actually FAQ'd it to be 3 power. This special action is attack and consists of 2 parts, the grab and the throw. If the character fails to grab, the attack fails and the target may not be thrown. Pretty standard. Grabbing. So basically, grabbing, choose a target that is in contact with the character's volume. The target must have a size value of equal to or lower than the initiating model's strength. If you grab a scenery piece, you automatically grab the scenery piece. There is no requirement to roll the hit. It's automatically successful. If the target is an enemy character, you must make a physical melee attack against the target, which the power for that attack roll is already included in the 3 power that you've spent to initiate it. If the attack fails, the action ends. If the attack succeeds, no damage or effects are inflicted. This even includes if you roll a critical to grab somebody, because there is no damage whatsoever just on the grab. But the character is then thrown instead. See below as this is a melee attack, remember that you may overload rule or use the overload rule as usual. If the target is a friendly character, then refer to throwing a friendly model character later. We'll get into that later on. Don't worry about it. So throwing. So you used to be able to throw out 3 different things. Any point on the ground, scenery piece, or another model. Now it's just you can only throw out terrain or scenery pieces and a model, whether it be good or bad. So it's broken down. You can throw a scenery piece or model equal to double the character's strength that initiated the attack. So for Colossus, that is an example. He's strength 4. He can throw up to size 4 items or characters up to 8 inches away because his strength is 4, and you double that. So for damage, when you're throwing anybody, it's strength -1 of the character that did the throwing. So say Colossus is going to throw Pyro into a scenery piece. The scenery piece and Pyro both take strength -1 damage, which is equal to 3 damage because Colossus is strength 4. Or if you're using a scenery piece to throw at somebody, you're going to take 4 damage. When you throw a scenery piece, they do have the Overwhelm special ability. So what happens is it will knock down anybody that's damaged to it. It's going to go through other targets. So say you throw a cop car at Pyro and there's a crate inside. That crate will suffer damage equal to the size of the thrown scenery piece. And then if it is small enough that the cop car will continue to go through to hit Pyro, that crate will be destroyed. So a scenery piece that is thrown will only stop if it hits the target of the throw. If the total size of accumulated objects like crates and such equals or beats the size value of the thrown object, or the amount of accumulated damage against the item is enough to destroy it. So those are the only ways that the vehicle will stop. So let's say there's 2 crates inside from this cop car. It will be dealt 2 damage. If they're size 2, let's say, they will be dealt 2 damage, or the cop car will be dealt 2 damage for each crate that is in between the thrower and the target. So that is basically what Overwhelm is. And again, if there's any other models in between the two, it will accumulate those size and damage as well. They'll have to make an agility test to prevent any damage to themselves. So if they succeed on the agility test, they don't actually take any damage and they're fine. But if they fail, they take damage equal to the size of the scenery piece, and I should say are knocked down, or they take the size of the character that was thrown at them. So, and then, yeah, so that's basically how the attack works in a roundabout way. Let's just show you actually on the board what it looks like. We'll get you right down to the board level. I have Colossus and Pyro out, hence why I've been talking about them. And we'll just get into showing you how we can break down the actual grab and throw. All right, guys, so this is basically how the setup's going to be for this scenario. So we're going to start off with a very simple one. It is going to be a grab and throw attack by Colossus into Pyro. So he's going to spend 3 power. Neither of these guys have activated yet this turn, let's say. So Colossus would spend 3 power out of his 7, and then he would automatically pick up this cop car because he's in base contact with it. There's no attack roll necessary because it is a scenery piece. It is a size 4 scenery piece, so he can throw it 8 inches, which is definitely less than the distance between the two, but he wouldn't be able to throw it if there is 2 inches or less between the cop car and the and Pyro, because the cop car is the attack or the originating scenery piece. So basically you would measure the distance from the cop car. So there's more than 2 inches there. So he automatically picks it up. I then obviously, I've went through the steps. I declared the attack, grab and throw. I declared my target, Pyro. I paid the cost. Pyro is not going to increase any of his, improve his defenses or anything like that, just because it's for this scenario. It's just going to keep it simple. And so then Colossus would have to roll and hit Pyro with the cop car. So, again, right now Colossus has attack 7, Pyro has physical defense of 15. So that's an 8 difference, but I got to beat 15, so I really need to get a 16. So I need a 9 or higher to roll on the dice. And so right there, let's say I rolled a 10, which I did, for Colossus. This cop car would be thrown into Pyro. Pyro would take 4 damage and become knocked down, and after a scenery piece is destroyed or thrown, it is automatically removed from the board and is destroyed. So that's how you would, a basic throwing a scenery piece would work, is you would declare the attack and the target, you would pay the cost, and then the target would get to react if they wanted to. You would then roll to hit, and then roll to, after it hits, you would deal the damage to them and any other effects, which the effects would be knocked down. So next we'll show you if there was scenery pieces in the way. Alright, so now there is a barricade in the way between Pyro and Colossus with other scenery pieces. I'm going to say these crates are size 2 each. Okay, so they're about human size. And they will impede the throw. So at this point in time, Colossus declares the attack that he's grabbing and throwing the scenery piece that he's in base contact with. He declares the target of Pyro. He then pays for the cost of the attack, which is 3, but he will overload it this time, making it 4, just to show that he can hit, or just in hopes that he'll hit. And then he rolls to hit. So I roll to hit. So that's 12, a critical, plus 3. So he hits Pyro, who did not improve anything, again, just for this scenario. So he would hit Pyro. As it's going through, though, these crates are both, because you're using the actual volume and the shape of the vehicle. It doesn't change like this to try to narrow and move out of the way of the buildings. You're using the position of the car when it was originally thrown. So it's going to be thrown like this, hitting both crates. So it hits this crate first, comes in contact with it. It's dealt 2 damage due to the size, or accumulates 2 size. So it continues going, and then it hits the second one. So after it hits the second one, it's now accumulated 4 size and 4 damage. And so the vehicle would stop right there because of the accumulated size of the objects in between Colossus and Pyro. So at that point in time, the attack would stop. These would be removed, so would the car, and Pyro would be fine. There would be no damage dealt to him because the police car did not actually make into him. Alright, so this time Colossus is going to be targeting a grab and throw on Toad. So what happens here is I've declared my target, or the attack, I declared my target, I've paid the cost. Toad is not going to react with anything special. I will overload the attack just to make sure it hits. So I roll the dice, and that's definitely a hit right there. Okay, so that's 12 plus the attack of 7, so 19. So that's definitely a hit against Toad. So he has been grabbed, but Toad hasn't been dealt any damage yet because of the fact that the grab doesn't deal any damage, even if it was a critical. So now that's the first part of the two-part action when it involves grabbing another model or an enemy model. So now Colossus wants to throw Toad at Pyro. So I'd have to roll a hit. It's going to roll 2d8, and that's 7 plus 7. Wouldn't hit, but say I rolled a 10, okay? Toad would then be thrown at Pyro. He would hit him and knock him down. Both models would be knocked down. Both models, so Pyro would suffer a strength 2 hit from the size of Toad, and Toad would get strength strength -1 damage on him from the strength of the throw by Colossus. So that's how that works out when you're throwing an enemy model at another enemy target. All right, throwing characters. Second part of that, you're gonna be throwing your own. So Colossus is declaring a grab and throw action, declaring Wolverine as the target because he's grabbing Wolverine, and then he pays for it. Doesn't need to hit because you're grabbing your own target or your own teammate, but at this point in time, Pyro again isn't doing any reaction, just for the scenario purposes, but Colossus will need to hit Pyro with the attack. So we would roll double damage, or critical damage, which gives you +1. We throw Wolverine into Pyro. So Pyro would get hit, he would take 2 damage from the throw. Wolverine then would have the option to use a sneaked attack, which we'll talk about afterwards, but he is not knocked down by the throw because he is a friendly model, and that is that. So you ask why Wolverine wouldn't take any damage. Well, in the throwing a friendly character section, it specifically says throwing a friendly character against an enemy character. However, you must roll to hit as normal, and then you follow all the throwing rules described above. So the throwing a friendly character section states, a friendly character model that is not KO may be thrown in the same way as an enemy, except no rules are required to grab the model. If the target is a piece of scenery or a point on the board, no roll to hit is required either, and no damage is caused to the friendly model. Simply place it in the new position. It is not knocked down. The model's base must fit in the new position. It is possible that the character may suffer falling damage as normal as a result of the throw and may be knocked down accordingly. So from this throw, Wolverine's not going to be knocked down because there's no elevation change, and he is not taking any damage or knocked down from the attack. But Pyro would be knocked down, and he would be suffering 2 damage from the size of Wolverine. But then Wolverine would get to use his free sneaked attack, and that goes into other possibilities which we'll describe after this. Grabbing and throwing an enemy model in base contact with you at a scenery piece. Alright, so first off, you would declare your action, declare who's using it, and the target. Self-explanatory. Pyro would be the target here. You would then pay for the cost. Pyro or the target would react, which we're not doing again just for this scenario, and then you'd roll the hit. So I rolled a hit. I'm going to say I rolled double 8s. That would still not be enough, so let's go 11. All right, so we rolled 11 plus the attack of 7 with Colossus. So definitely he grabs Pyro. So then you want to throw Pyro into a scenery piece, so into that building. So what would happen is you wouldn't need to hit. It would just automatically hit that wall at the distance of whatever you want to throw. So it has to be at least 2 inches away, obviously, like any ranged attack. He would then be dealt strength -1 damage, and the building would be dealt 2 damage. Obviously, damage absorption from the building and the size would come in factor for the building at that point in time. Model then would not be knocked down, and it would continue on, or the game would continue on from there. Going back for 1 second to the throwing a scenery piece, I should have done this earlier. So if I want to throw this cop car, I automatically pay the cost, declare the attack obviously, and go through the steps like normal. I'm going to throw this cop car, and instead of throwing it at Pyro, I'm going to throw it at the crates. Why would I do this? Basically, if his agility is lower, and he would have to roll really low to not take any damage from the cop car, I'd rather automatically hit the objects behind. So if it was switched around, Colossus was the target, I'd need to throw an object at him, I'd have to roll 20, and that's if he doesn't improve his physical defense. So I'd rather throw it at an object, let's say, behind him, making him make an agility test, which his agility is like 7, so not that good, and it just increases his chance of you dealing damage to him. So here, Colossus throwing the cop car at the crates. So he grabs it and throws, doesn't need to roll for that. Throws at the crates, doesn't need to roll for that. What does have to happen though is Pyro has to roll an agility. So he has agility 7, and so he rolled a 10. He would have failed his agility test, he would have taken 4 damage from the size of the vehicle, and then it would become knocked down because he was damaged by the vehicle as it was going through. So that's a good way of hitting somebody that has a higher physical defense with an object when you're throwing it. So hopefully that helps a little bit with that. Alright guys, so you saw my breakdown of the grab and throw, and so why would you use this? It's really, for me, there's a couple of reasons. A, the scenario, you want to knock somebody that has the relic, you want to knock them down so they drop the relic. Grab and throw is a great way of doing that. B, for scenarios, again, if you're playing energy pillar and you are trying to get that pillar up there, you can throw your teammates up the board to get them towards the center or towards the energy pillars faster. That way they can get into the game that much more quicker and can begin their activation closer to that center. And so even for a slower moving model, so let's take Colossus as an example. If he's thrown by Rogue, he can be thrown 8 inches up the board. That will get him to where you need him that much more faster. Now mind you, you do have Nightcrawler for that, but we'll discuss that another day. So the scenarios, that's one of the key reasons why I would use them. For actually hitting people, when you knock somebody down, you get a -1 to their defenses for any other attacks that's going towards them. So you knock them down with the throw, that sets up other attacks. So if you have a key figure that you want, or miniature or model that you want to take into the game, knock them down and then just focus everything on them. And then the damage. So if you have big models, Colossus that's throwing, a car a turn, that there is a huge amount of damage. There's 4 damage. That's huge. Some lower end models like maybe Nightcrawler, Toad, Black Widow, stuff like that don't have a large endurance bar, you could knock them from being healthy into the pale section of that endurance bar with 1 attack, which is a good thing. As well, you have people like Magneto that can throw it, a strength 4 scenery piece multiple times around, equal to the amount of power that he has, really. So, or as many times as his power will dictate. So he has power 9 when he's healthy, so 3 throws at, without overloading anything. So for me, the damage output is huge, which is really good. And then on top of that, you have other combos. So you have like Wolverine with his fastball special, which he can use to get even more damage when you throw a model or him at an enemy model. So you have combos like that as well. You can also throw a target off of a building at something, because then that height difference, as long as they're not a flyer, they'll take extra damage from that as well. So that's just all things that you can sort of sit there and think about as you're doing it. One of the key things though, when you are deciding to target somebody for a throw, look at their physical defense and compare that to their agility. If they have a low agility but high physical defense, then it might be better to, instead of targeting them with the throw, so as a target of the throw, it might be better to target a scenery piece behind them, so that way they have to make, it forces them to make that agility test. It's just sort of things like that that I would take a look at and inquire before actually throwing anything. Like I was having a game with Ash as a key example, my first game, and I wanted to throw a building at Colossus, and I had nothing else that I could throw the building at. that would hit Colossus and force him to make an agility test, and so I would have had to roll against his physical defense, and Colossus didn't activate yet by that point in time, and so he still had all his power, so he could have improved his defense and sent it up to 22, where Magneto has like an attack of like 6 or 7 off the top of my head, I can't remember. So I found it really hard to throw that building, or what I was wanting to throw that building at Colossus, but I really had a really hard time because of his physical defense was so high. So those are just some things to think about while you look at the grab and throw. If you have any questions, or if I didn't quite cover anything clearly enough, or if I left anything out, please leave a comment below. Thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna be trying to bring out these tactical videos on a regular basis, so maybe one week I'll do like a battle report, and the following week I'll do a tactical video, so that way each week, whether it be you know, a battle report or one of these tactical videos, you'll get something from Blackfyre Productions for the Marvel Universe miniature game. Also guys, if you have any other suggestions for tactical videos, what you would like to see next, comment that below too, so that way I can actually sort of gear it towards what my viewers and what you all are wanting to see. Anyhow, thank you for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, ignite your hobby.